So the question I get most often in the run-up to exams is, I've been told I've got to revise, but I don't know how to revise, right? So I'm going to tell you in a step-by-step guide in this video, the stages that you need to go through, how you're going to make the maximum time out of your revision, and also how you can have a life as well as doing work towards exams. And that's what we're aiming for. We're aiming for a healthy way of building towards exams because most of all, it's going to keep you healthy and happy, but also it's the best way of making sure that you perform at your maximum capability. If you're burnt out by the time you get to exams, then it's not going to be helpful. So let's go through our step-by-step stages, right? First off, know your priorities for subjects, okay? So there's probably subjects that you know you want to do at the next stage of your education. There's probably subjects which you know you struggle with. Those are probably the subjects that you're going to have to put more effort into because you want to do better in those subjects that you need for later on. You want to make sure that you're boosting the subjects that you're not doing particularly well in, or if you've missed a bunch of lessons in something or something like that, right? You've got more to revise for those. So know what those priority subjects are, right? And it can't be everything because you can't take on everything. Make sure you've got a few where you're like, those are the ones that I want to target. Okay. Once you've got that, you need to make sure you've got your notes in order. Before you start any revision, if you're missing any notes on any particular subject, if you're missing any notes on any particular topic, you need to make sure that you've gone out of your way to fill those gaps. So talk to your teachers about stuff and make sure that you've got information from them. Look online and see if you can find, right, I wasn't sure about that bit, but now I've got notes on it. Speak to people who are in your class and see if you can get some notes from them. So you've got a full set of information before you go into it. Because if you're doing that while you're revising, it's going to waste loads of your time. Make sure you've got that done well in advance of the exams. Okay, once we've got that, then we want to actually start planning out our revision. If you just say, I'm going to revise and randomly pick some stuff and go, I'll revise that, by the time you get to the exams, you're going to have gaps, right? So some things you'll have done pretty well, some things you won't have prioritized. You're not going to be using your time to its maximum possible capacity, right? So here's a way of planning out your revision. First off, you want to look at the week that you generally have, a traditional week that you have with the usual routines you've got in there. So here's an example of that. Now in that, you'll notice we've got time for school when you're there, you've got time for travelling on the bus, you've got time for eating dinner, you've also got regular things that you might do like going and seeing your dad and spending some time with him, or you know, you've got football on that particular evening, you've got a music lesson at a particular time. Also in here, we've got time built in for having time off, right? So we are doing something that's nothing to do with revision, nothing to do with schoolwork, making sure we're relaxed, making sure we're prepared and our minds are sharp so we can actually do the revision. And given that, when you've then thought about, well, these are the spaces in my week, I don't want to do any revision on this day I want to do a little bit more, that's when you can start blocking in, right, that hour I've got for revision, that hour I've got for revision, that hour I've got for revision, and make sure that it's manageable and you've got a reasonable amount of time, right? So once you've plotted in that revision over the course of the week, then you want to look at the time you've got left until you get to exams. Ideally, it's a few weeks, a month or so, right, before we get to exams. And then what you want to do is take your priorities. So on this example, priorities are English because they want to do it for A level, and chemistry because they want to. They've got loads to revise for chemistry. They know they struggle with that subject. So now we've plotted in all of the subjects that we've got exams on, right? And we've done it on a regular basis. So we keep coming back to those particular subjects. So you're not doing all of your revision for one subject right next to the exams. You've done a bit, you've come back to it, you've come back to it, and you've put in slightly more for those priority subjects. So a little bit more for English or a little bit more for chemistry. So you're making sure you're meeting the demands that you need for those particular subjects. Also in there, you'll notice we've got some special events. Chances are you're going to have a birthday party you've got to go to, or a swimming competition that you've got to go to, right? And you've prioritised and put those in there so we know that we can still go to those and we're still getting the work in there that we need to do. So once we've got our plan, then we need to use it, okay? If you've got that plan and you turn up and you don't actually do the revision you're supposed to do, or you miss stuff, or it goes badly wrong, right, then all right, you can kind of tweak things around. But if you're really not sticking to it, then it's not going to help you, right? So first off, stick to the plan. But then when you actually come to do the revision itself, there are key things that you need to do. The first thing that you need to do is make sure you're spending quality time on revision. Okay, so it goes back to our thing that I was talking about where you've got all your notes in order. If you come to your hour's worth of revision for a particular subject and you spend 20 minutes finding a book, then you spend another 20 minutes finding your pencil case, and then within the last 20 minutes that you've got your phone going, so you continue getting notifications, you've got the TV on over here, you're probably only going to do about 2 or 3 minutes of actual work in that hour. If you've got everything prepared already, If you've got a quiet space to do your revision and you focus and concentrate on it for that hour, that means you are actually going to get an hour of work. And it means that at the end of that hour, you can go, right, I'm done now. I can stop. I can go and do something else, refresh myself, make sure I'm ready for tomorrow, make sure I'm well rested. If you've only done 2 or 3 minutes, you're going to feel pretty guilty about it. You're not going to have actually got that much stuff in there. So make sure you're doing quality revision time. Okay. After that, make sure that you know the exams that you're actually, and how to get marks on those exams that you're actually going to take. All very well revising loads and loads of information on a particular subject. Let's say you know loads about the American Civil War and you've learned tons and tons of stuff about the American Civil War for history, and your exam actually isn't on the American Civil War. Well, that's not very useful, is it? Even if you've learnt loads on something, so let's say the exam is on the American Civil War and you've learnt loads on it, but you don't know how to answer the questions to get good marks, then the revision is useless to you. You've got all the information, but you can't put it into practice. So you need to know, what are the exams you're taking, what are the questions going to be on the exams, how do you answer those questions to get good marks? And knowing that information is as important as learning the knowledge you're going to need for the exams. So make sure you know that. If you don't, talk to teachers about it, talk to friends about it, look it up online, make sure you've got that stuff in order. And that's what you should be doing in the early stages of revision. Then you're going to actually need to know subject knowledge, right? And learn things. Key thing with this is to interpret the information as you're revising it rather than just reading it. If you sit and read a book and just read it for an hour, scientifically proven that information, you're going to have very low retention of that information. If you've written something down and made notes from that information, if you've turned it into some sort of chart, or if you've interpreted it in some way in some sort of table or something like that, or reduced notes that you had from last time and actually written them in a sort of different form, because your brain is processing it, you will learn and retain that information much better. Now, there are lots of different ways of doing this, and it's up to you to find one that works for you, right? And if it's working for you in one subject, why not try it in a different subject? If it's not working, then try it and mix it up. Okay, once you've done that and you've actually learned the information, really key towards the end, and once you're starting to get towards your exams and into the exam season, is to do little bits of timed practice. Now, I'm not talking here about sitting an entire past paper for an hour. That's often not that helpful, but little bits of practice of anything where you're putting yourself under time conditions, so one question from a longer paper, or writing down as much vocabulary as you can for German within a 5-minute period, right? And then testing yourself and seeing if you got it correct. Doing it with somebody else, a family member or a friend, and doing sort of testing like that. Anything where you can put yourself under little bits of time pressure, that's absolutely going to help you replicate what you would do in that final exam.